We open straight into the digital hype machine, with chat logs buzzing in anticipation for the legendary EP1 and his infamous trash tier warrior Kim build, known specifically for absolutely demoralizing newbies. The virtual world is clamoring for his arrival, and with a simple tap on a glowing screen, we cut to the reality behind the username. To reveal his classic gamer energy, sitting in a darkroom piled high with instant noodle cups and soda cans. Our protagonist looks utterly wrecked with massive dark circles under his eyes, yet that intense, knowing smirk illuminated by his phone confirms he's every bit the ruthless newbie crushout that chat is waiting for. The perspective shifts to the FTP king in his natural habitat, and he is absolutely toxic. We see his thumb hovering over the screen as he fires off a savage insult about another player's character build, proving he isn't just a skilled player, but a menace in the chat. The camera cuts to a close-up of his face, exhausted, dark circles deep enough to swim in, yet wearing a terrifyingly confident smirk as he taps the screen. He leans back in his trash-filled room, surrounded by instant noodles, looking down on the gaming world with pure arrogance. His inner monologue reveals the truth. He doesn't fear the whales who dump money into full SSR teams. To him, these rich newbies are nothing but easy prey, and he is fully prepared to crush their pay-to-win dreams with a simple, mocking thought. But so what? With a tap of his finger and a predatory grin, our F2P king dives into the Colosseum, fully expecting to steamroll another generic team of female characters. However, the matchmaking system drops a bomb on his expectations. As the loading screen fades, he isn't met with an easy victory, but a wall of absolute despair. The opponent's lineup is the textbook definition of pay-to-win dominance. Standing front and center is the menacing heavenly demon, flanked by the magical might of Merlin and the monstrous Leviathan, all while the angel Gabriel watches from the back. It is the dreaded zero-tier setup, a godlike formation that screams power and money, instantly turning his confident smirk into a realization that he's about to face a serious beatdown. The matchup screen loads, and the visual disparity is absolutely brutal. A perfect David versus Goliath moment where Goliath is made of money. On the left, our protagonist, warrior Kim, looks like a ragtag hobo with mismatched armor, nervously asking for mercy against the usual female character team. On the right, the rank 1 player Ironclad Master stands in majestic black and gold dragon robes, radiating a blinding aura of wealth and power that completely overshadows the F2P warrior. The ultimate disrespect lands not with an attack, but with a casual chat message, "I'll just set it to autoplay." This dismissive comment instantly shatters our protagonist's composure, shifting his expression in the real world from confidence to vein-popping irritation, as he realizes he's not even worth his opponent's manual effort. The battle concludes in a single, devastating frame as the heavenly demon summons a terrifying spectral dragon to absolutely obliterate warrior Kim. It's not just a defeat. It's an erasure, with our protagonist's painstakingly leveled avatar disintegrating into red pixels under the crushing weight of a pay-to-win ultimate attack. The screen flashes a giant red defeat, rubbed in by the opponent's casual GG, proving that money beats skill every time. Back in the real world, the frustration boils over. He slams his fist onto the bed, realizing that his trash tier warrior, despite all the nectar and limit breaking, was nothing more than paper before a true SSR god. The line between game and reality blurs, a burst of pure rage as our protagonist grabs his hair and screams ARGH. In sheer frustration, the mental damage becomes physical when he violently slams his head into the wall with a deafening WHAM, cracking the plaster behind him in a fit of despair. Defeated and slumped on the floor amidst his trash-filled room, he curses the damn pay-to-win game, finally questioning his own principles as he wonders if it's time to give in and start spending money. The temptation to open his wallet becomes almost overwhelming as our protagonist starts bargaining with himself, rationalizing that spending just 1 million won to snag a top-tier warrior might finally end his suffering. But suddenly, the sheer weight of his dedication crashes down in the form of a massive, glowing holographic timer reading 10,000 hours behind him. His eyes, red with exhaustion and intensity, lock onto the screen as he rejects the easy path, realizing that his pride simply won't allow him to invalidate years of grinding with a credit card swipe. The daily grind continues, but the thrill is long gone. Our protagonist stares at the free summon button, a daily ritual that usually results in nothing but disappointment. He taps the screen with zero expectations, yawning through the familiar bzzzt vibration as if it's a chore rather than a game. His expression says, all dead eyes reflecting the glow of the screen, mentally prepared for another round of useless junk items. It's the classic gacha burnout. He's so used to failure that hope isn't even part of the equation anymore. The monotonous routine is violently interrupted as the phone doesn't just buzz, it practically explodes with activity. The screen erupts into a blinding white light, accompanied by a vibration so intense bzzzt that it shakes the entire frame, signaling that this isn't just another trash pull. Our protagonist's boredom instantly vanishes, replaced by a look of pure shock and confusion, as he realizes something is fundamentally different this time. Sitting up in his dark room, bathed in the eerie glow of the device, he senses the anomaly immediately. The vibration is lasting too long, and the intensity is far beyond normal, hinting that a miracle or a curse is about to unfold. The shock on his face says it all as the moment of truth arrives. See, could it be? He stammers, unable to believe his eyes. The phone screen doesn't just light up. It erupts with a blinding radiance that completely transcends the usual common drops. It is a holy light, a swirling mix of white and gold with a distinct metallic sheen that every gamer dreams of seeing. In the darkness of his room, our protagonist sits mesmerized, bathing in the glory of the rarest color in the entire game, platinum. The skepticism vanishes instantly, replaced by a look of pure, sweaty disbelief as he stammers, see, could it be? The phone screen isn't just glowing, it is erupting with a divine radiance that completely overtakes the darkness of his room. This isn't the usual white light of trash loot. It is a blinding, swirling mix of gold and white with a distinct metallic sheen. Bathed in this holy aura, our protagonist realizes with trembling excitement that he has finally struck the ultimate jackpot, the legendary color of platinum. The room is bathed in a holy light as the protagonist stares in absolute awe, his mouth agape at the miracle unfolding in his hands. The screen shimmers, but the legendary platinum border a sight he thought was reserved only for lucky streamers, signaling the arrival of a true myth. And there he is, the SSR heavenly demon, radiating majestic power in his black and gold robes, standing with crossed arms as if to say the king has finally arrived. This isn't just a lucky pull, it's destiny rewriting itself, handing the ultimate weapon to the one player who knows exactly how to use it. The moment of ultimate sacrifice arrives, and it is brutally efficient. On the enhancement screen, the protagonist lines up every version of Warrior Kim, the character he spent thousands of hours grinding as mere fodder for his new god-tier unit. With a single tear running down his cheek and a gentle smile, he whispers farewell, acknowledging the end of an era before his finger taps the enhance button without hesitation. In a flash of light, his past identity disintegrates into particles, consumed to fuel the rise of the heavenly demon. After the frenzy of sacrificing his entire roster, our protagonist lies in bed, staring at his phone with zero regrets. With a smug grin plastered on his face, he drifts off to sleep, hugging his pillow while his phone screen glows with the ultimate achievement. The SSR heavenly demon, already displaying max level reach thanks to his ruthless efficiency. The scene is peaceful, almost too peaceful, as the narration drops a heavy cliffhanger. I had no idea then, signaling that this satisfied slumber is the calm before the storm that will drag him into the game world itself. The explosion of emotion is completely uncontrollable. Our protagonist screams "you" so loud it shakes the room, unable to contain the ecstasy of finally breaking his F2P curse. The dignity of a top-tier player vanishes instantly as he drops to the floor, rolling around amid scattered soda cans and instant noodle cups while wailing "wah" like a baby, tears streaming down his face in pure relief. The celebration is so chaotic that the neighbors violently bang on the wall, yelling, "Hey, keep it down in there," but he is in his own world. Wiping away his tears while clutching the phone like a holy relic, he completely dismisses the angry threats because nothing else matters anymore. The heavenly demon is king.
The nightmare begins with a deafening screech as tires burn against the asphalt. The world is swallowed by blinding flash of headlights, growing larger by the second, signaling inevitable doom. Then crash, an enormous impact shatters the silence and glass alike, violently throwing a young man into the void as blood splatters across the scene. marking the brutal start of his new reality. The nightmare doesn't end, it only shifts. Our protagonist, head wrapped entirely in bandages like a mummy, shoots upright in a cold, sterile hospital room, gasping for breath. Sweating and disoriented, he screams ARGHHH. In pure agony. Across from him, a middle-aged patient stares blankly, asking if it was a nightmare. But the real horror sets in when he asks, "Where am I?" And the man replies, "Where do you think?" "You're in a hospital." With trembling, bandaged hands, I pulled the ID card from the old wallet. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the plastic. The face was unfamiliar. But the name printed boldly below it was impossible. Warrior Kim. Cold sweat dripped onto the card as my mind raced in denial. Warrior Kim. What kind of ridiculous name is that? That's not me. The doctor shines a penlight into his eyes, asking for his name. Kim Junsu, he answers instinctively. But the doctor shakes his head, revealing a chilling truth. According to our records, your name is Warrior Kim. Confusion turns to dread when the doctor points to the calendar on the wall. Do you know what today's date is? May 1st. Ah, I see. It was May 30th. The lost time hangs heavy in the air, a missing month stolen by the crash. The cold, monotonous voice of the hospital administrator delivers the final blow. Your total comes to 22,370,569 won. Our protagonist stands frozen, head wrapped in bandages. Unable to process the number. 22 million won. Is this some kind of joke? He stammers. Sweat pouring down his face as the crushing weight of debt in this new reality begins to sink in. The doctor points to the electronic calendar, its May 30 display glaring like an accusation. Our protagonist stares in horror, realizing that the date he thought was May 1st is actually a month later. The gap in his memory isn't just ours, it's weeks stolen by the accident. Ah, I see. It was May 30th, the doctor says calmly, while the patient's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as the lost time crashes down on him. The nightmare continues not with monsters, but with numbers. The hospital admin presents a bill that feels like a death sentence. 22,370,569 won. Our protagonist, still reeling from the crash and bandaged like a mummy, stares at the screen in utter disbelief. 22 million won. Is this some kind of joke? He stammers, sweat pouring down his face as the crushing weight of debt in this new reality begins to sink in. Cast out into the pouring rain, our protagonist stumbles away from Arcane Seoul General Hospital, clutching his battered body in pain. The cold reality washes over him just as hard as the rain. No national health insurance, no coverage. Just a void where safety should be. Abandoned by the system and crushed by debt, he stands silent under the oppressive gray sky, realizing he has truly hit rock bottom. I had nothing left to say. The squeaking hinge of the boarding house door is the soundtrack to his new life. Squeak. The room revealed is a suffocating one-pyong box, smaller and filthier than anything he knew before. Mold creeps up the walls, mirroring the decay of his situation. Sitting on the stained mattress in his bandaged state, he looks around in utter defeat. So small. This place is awful, he thinks, the claustrophobia setting, and as he realizes this dark, cramped cell is now home, the nightmare starts with a deafening bang, bang, bang. That shatters the silence. Hey, Warrior Kim. You in there? A harsh voice bellows. The door is shoved open with a slam, revealing the bulldog-faced landlady, twisted in rage. When are you going to pay this month's rent? You're already 2 months behind. She screams, spit flying as she corners the terrified, bandaged tenant in his tiny room. The landlady's greed reaches monstrous levels. Leaning in with a sickening grin, she stops demanding rent and casually suggests the unthinkable. Think about it. I'm talking about human organs. Pointing to her own eye, she calmly advises him to sell a kidney or an eye, claiming optical prosthetics work perfectly fine. Cornered and horrified by this casual wickedness in Arcane Soul, the bandaged protagonist can only stare, his mind screaming, Jesus Christ. The moral line is crossed, and the bandaged protagonist snaps. With a violent shove and a decisive slam, he drives the repulsive landlady out of his cage, screaming, "Get out!" Leaning against the door, he collapses onto the floor, completely shattered and defeated. His composure gone, he can only clutch his head in disbelief, muttering, Jesus Christ, finally realizing the sheer, casual wickedness of Arcane Soul, where survival demands selling your own body parts. The initial shock has passed, replaced by a grim resolve. Propelled by the need to understand his reality, the protagonist uses his smartphone as a makeshift mirror, sighing heavily, With shaky, bandaged hands, he begins the final ritual. Layer after slow layer, the medical gauze falls away. The pale, drawn skin beneath the bandages is revealed, leaving him just moments away from facing the terrifying new identity hidden beneath the wraps. The cruel irony of his fate hits him, triggering hysterical, manic laughter as he stares at his reflection. The scar on his left cheek confirms the devastating truth. He is now Warrior Kim, the trash tier tutorial character. The laughter dies, replaced by a fierce resolve. In this terrifying new reality, he knows his 10,000 hours of knowledge about Arcane Soul's lore, meta, and secrets is the only asset he has left to survive. The smartphone screen glows cold in the dark. Legion Bank balance 136,711 won. Clutching a few bills in my trembling hand, my entire fortune amounts to a measly 170,000 won. Desperation tightens my chest as I sit alone in this desolate room. I need to stay alive, but in this unforgiving reality, how am I supposed to survive on such a pittance? The cold screen mocks my reality, a meager balance of 136,711 won. Even with the cash in hand, my life is valued at barely 170,000 won. Desperate, I cling to the one hope left for a transmigrator. I call out into the void. Status window. Silence. I try every keyword stats. Character sheet nothing, damn it. As I sit in the dim light of this dingy room, the harsh truth settles in. My plan to cheat my way through this hell has failed before it even began. A pathetic 136,711 won. Is this all my life is worth? I need to stay alive, but the world offers no status window or shortcuts to save me. My gamer knowledge fails in silence. Cornered and desperate, I resort to a brutal awakening. I shut my eyes and drive a pen deep into my hand. Keck. Agony flares instant and sharp, but this pain is the only price I can pay to force a path to survival. 136,711 won. A death sentence. With no status window to save me, I have to force the system's hand. I drive a pen deep into my flesh. Keck, the pain is blinding, but then a cool sensation washes over me. Blue light mends the torn skin. Trait. Wound recovery acquired. Okay, it worked. The first piece of my survival puzzle is set. With no status window to save me, I chose pain to force the system's hand. I drove a pen into my flesh. Keck. The agony birthed a blue glow trait. Wound recovery. But safety wasn't my goal. Delete it. I focused intensely and stabbed the wound again. Ugh. This time, the blood flowed freely, and the system obeyed. Trait deleted. I smiled through the pain. The perfect blank slate for grinding warrior Kim is ready. With the wound recovery trait successfully deleted through self-inflicted agony, I rushed out to begin my grind, only to freeze in the damp alleyway. Mr. Lee staggered past a living nightmare with a steel jaw and grinding gears. The barbaric price paid for his survival. Ha ha ha. His mechanical laughter chilled me to the bone. Realizing this unforgiving world could strip away my humanity too, terror overrode reason. I'll end up like that, shuddering. I sprinted into the night, desperate to escape a fate worse than death. Despair fuels my madness. Denied a status window, I carve my own path literally. I stab my hand to acquire recovery, then ruthlessly delete it with another strike. A blank slate is essential. But the world outside is a nightmare. Mr. Lee, a cyborg monstrosity, laughs at my frailty. Terror becomes my fuel. I sprint until my lungs burn and legs fail, collapsing into the dirt. To survive this hell, I must break my body to rebuild it stronger. A numeric tombstone. Denied a status window, I carve my own path through agony. I stab my hand to force recovery, then ruthlessly delete it to keep my slate clean. Outside, the mechanical horror of Mr. Lee fuels my terror. I run until my lungs burn, collapsing in a bloody heap. My broken body smiles as the system finally yields, vigor acquired. Pain is just the currency of my survival. A death sentence. Denied a status window, I carve my own path through agony. I stab my hand to force recovery, then ruthlessly delete it to keep my slate clean. Outside, mechanical horrors fuel my terror. I run until I collapse in blood to seize vigor. Finally, one desperate pull on the machine grants me strength. My body breaks, but the perfect grinding warrior is born. Desperation fueled my grind. I ran until I collapsed in the dirt to seize vigor, then pushed my muscles to their breaking point for strength. But survival in this hell requires more than just brute force. It demands wealth. I scoured the dark park, searching for a sign until a clink. A 501 coin. Suddenly, the ground erupted in blue sparkles, revealing hidden loot everywhere. Treasure hunter acquired. The path to riches is finally open. Denied a status window, I forged my survival through pain and humiliation. I carved my hand for recovery only to delete it, ran until I collapsed for vigor, and broke my limits for strength. A coin unlocked the path to riches with treasure hunter. Finally, I swallowed my dignity, smearing filth on my face to acquire contamination resistance. The foundation is set. Denied a status window, I carved survival into my flesh, unlocking and deleting recovery. Driven by the horror of the mechanical Mr. Lee, I pushed my body to the brink, collapsing for vigor and straining for strength. I scavenged a coin for treasure hunter and bathed in filth for resistance. Finally, through intense focus on a tower of toothpicks, I seized extraction and synthesis. The perfect grinding warrior is complete. Denied a status window, I forged survival through pain. I cycled recovery, collapsed for vigor, and strained for strength. A coin unlocked treasure hunter, and filth granted resistance. Toothpicks secured extraction and synthesis, seeking a broken limit. I stabbed my hand again. A waste, no. The wound healed slowly on its own. A hidden power has awakened. Faced with a death sentence, I carved my survival through agony. I stabbed my hand for recovery, deleted it, and broke my body for vigor and strength. Filth gave me resistance. And focus granite extraction. I built the perfect grinder. Yet, as I stared at my hand healing without the trait, I realized the rules of this world don't apply to me. Trait switch. The realization hit like lightning. I can swap skills instantly, morphing my body from scrawny to muscular in a split second. I am not limited to 6 slots. I am a walking arsenal. But to fuel this, I need money. I stepped into the grim Choi's labor office, ignoring the sneers of mutants like the Ortia junkie Rodia. Manager Choi, with his steel cheek and greedy eyes, thinks he's found a naive sacrificial lamb for a dangerous dungeon run. I smiled back at the predator. I'd be happy to join. It felt like lightning struck, the grueling grind stabbing flesh for recovery, bathing in filth for resistance, and breaking limits for strength was just the prelude. As I unlocked Bright Eyes, my muscles withered instantly. Panic gave way to a godlike realization. I'm not limited to 6 slots. I can swap them at will. I am a walking arsenal with infinite possibilities. Trapped in poverty without a status window, I forged my path through agony. I pierced my flesh for recovery, collapsed for vigor, and strained for strength, filth and focus granite resistance and synthesis. But as I unlocked Bright Eyes, my muscles withered instantly. A revelation hit like lightning. I'm not bound by limits. I can swap traits instantly. I am an infinite weapon. The realization hit like lightning. My grueling grind stabbing flesh for recovery, collapsing for vigor, and straining for strength was just the beginning. When I unlocked Bright Eyes, my muscles withered instantly. Panic turned to godlike power. I'm not bound by limits. I can swap traits instantly. I am an infinite weapon. Lightning struck. The realization changed everything. I'm not limited to 6 traits. I can swap them at will. As I activated Bright Eyes, my strength vanished, leaving my arms scrawny. But with a mere thought, I reversed it, muscles bulging instantly. Trait switch. I can be a tank or DPS in a split second. I am no longer just surviving. I am a total game changer. My grind stabbing flesh for recovery, collapsing for vigor, and straining for strength was a prelude. Unlocking Bright Eyes withered my muscles, revealing the truth. I can swap traits instantly. I am an infinite weapon. Now, facing the mutants at Choi's labor office, I'm ready to dominate. My grind stabbing flesh for recovery, collapsing for vigor, and straining for strength was a prelude. Unlocking Bright Eyes withered my muscles, revealing the truth. I can swap traits instantly. I am an infinite weapon. Now, facing the mutants at Choi's labor office, I'm ready to dominate. I am not bound by the 6-slot limit. With a mere thought, my arm morphed back into a weapon of mass destruction. I possess the trait switch, an arsenal of infinite possibilities. Armed with this secret, I stepped into the gloom of Choi's labor office. Ignoring the sneers of the Ortia junkie Rodia, I looked Manager Choi in the eye and signed my life away for purification. The predator has entered the dungeon. Under the receptionist's professional smile lay a grim reality. I stared at the stack of papers. Body contamination consent form. The legal jargon was dense, but the core message was brutal. If I rotted or mutated, the blame was mine alone. With a hardened gaze, I gripped the pen and signed. In this desperate world, I had to sell my safety for a chance to survive. Wow, this is a new level of shady. My eyes locked onto the predatory clauses highlighted in yellow. A steep 20% fee, no meals provided, and mandatory private insurance. It was blatant exploitation disguised as standard procedure. The receptionist maintained her pleasant smile, indifferent to the trap she was handing me. I knew I was being fleeced, but desperation left me no leverage. But there's no helping it. With a heavy heart, I resigned myself to their rules. The narrow hallway opened into a surprisingly spacious office, dominated by a heavy desk. Behind it sat manager Choi Sun-soo, smoke curling on his bald head. His gaze was sharp, but what caught my eye was the cold, metallic grid grafted onto his cheek, HM. A newbie, huh? He smirked, assessing me like merchandise. So, your name's Warrior Kim. I met his stare without flinching, fully aware of the greed behind those eyes. Yes, I'm Warrior Kim, slipped the team leader, a little extra. The manager's advice was thinly veiled extortion. He expected me to work for free, framing it as tuition for a rookie. So you want me to work for free for a year? The realization hit me this was a trap designed to exploit desperate newcomers. I looked at the metal-cheeked man and drew a line in the sand, my voice devoid of emotion. I don't have anything to give. Are you really that desperate? You're going to get yourself killed. Manager Choi slammed the desk, feigning anger to test my resolve. I lowered my head, playing the desperate rookie perfectly. I'm sorry, but I really need money now. Seeing my vulnerability, his facade cracked into a predatory sneer. Sucker. He thought he was exploiting a naive fool, completely unaware that I was the one baiting him into his own trap. Let me suggest something else. Temporary teams. Manager Choi puffed on his glowing neon vape, his mechanical cheek shifting as he cast the bait. He saw a desperate rookie sucker, walking blindly into a death trap for money. The pay's better, he lured. I suppressed a smirk, hiding the fact that I knew exactly what this entailed. I'd be happy to join. He thought he was using me, unaware that I was the one who had just found the perfect hunting ground. I knew exactly where the manager planned to send me. We shook hands, sealing the deal. He smirked, the metal on his face glinting, convinced he had hooked another sucker for his death trap. He thought he was exploiting a desperate rookie. He didn't realize that beneath my calm exterior, I was laughing. I wasn't walking into a trap. I was walking into a gold mine. The antique bus rumbled through the early morning gray. I sat alone, feeling the toxic whispers of the veterans behind me. Think he'll mutate right away. They saw a dead man walking. I fixed my gaze on Rodir, the potential superhuman, a bitter thought crossing my mind. Ha! I envy Rodir. This daily hell was their routine. For me, it was just the first stage. The rough workers leaned in, their whispers thick with bitter envy. Heard he has monocircuits, the potential power of Rodir, a nascent superhuman. Was a cruel joke to men scarred by mutation. Every prosthetic limb and dark stain screamed of the price they paid just to survive. Lucky bastard. Their desperation was palpable, highlighting the gross unfairness of this dark world. The driver tossed the suppressant onto my lap, his tone grave. Make sure to inject yourself at the end of each day. If you don't, you'll die. The stark warning highlighted the raw danger of the purification work. I examined the syringes, a confident thought overriding the fear. I won't need it. Thanks to my combination of contamination resistance and vigor traits. While others rely on temporary medicine, I possess my own permanent defense system. The antique bus finally halted before a desolate concrete wall. A rusty sign, hanging from a skeletal tower, was unmistakable. Metropolitan Landfill No. 1. A glint of cold satisfaction appeared in my eyes. The very spot I had in mind from the beginning. This toxic wasteland, disguised as a landfill, was the exact level 0 dungeon I knew so well from my gaming life. The real game was on. Rodir confronted me. Mr. Kim, you're staying behind. You're too contaminated. Yet, for the veterans, the fear of mutation was eclipsed by a more immediate terror. Hedgehog Head, eyes wide behind his mask, confessed his brutal reality. What I'm scared of more than mutating is the debt collectors. Even if it kills me, I've got to do this. Debt was the true poison in this dark world. We stepped through the small door, plunging into suffocating darkness. My flashlight revealed a massive, damp concrete bunker, slick with mold and grotesque fungal growths that clung to the walls. The air was heavy, and the stench the thick. Nauseating smell of rot and filth hit me instantly. This was no ordinary landfill. This was a festering hole saturated with toxic mana contamination. Standing before the rusted gate J13, the rookie waved away the choking dust. Even as the hedgehog-haired man warned him through a gas mask, he remained stoic. I'll pass, ignoring the danger. He swiped the cord. Beep, with a metallic screech, the heavy doors parted, inviting them into the abyss. As the heavy door groaned open, a suffocating wall of black smoke surged out. Shit, the men recoiled, coughing violently as the noxious fumes hit them. It wasn't ordinary smoke, it was pure, concentrated mana contamination, swirling like a living nightmare waiting to consume them within the darkness. Hold your breath. The command cut through the toxic fog as the squad braced themselves. The rookie's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the shovel like a warrior drawing a sword. Emerging from the black haze were the contaminated slimes. Writhing and oozing, get to work, with grit and desperation, they plunged into the fray. Shovels clashing against the monstrous filth. The rookie thrust his shovel into the oozing mass with a sickening splurt, striking dangerously close to the hidden blue core. Yet for the others, the effort seemed futile against the regenerating filth. No damage, a worker thought grimly. Black sweat, the mark of severe mana contamination, dripped from their brows, poisoning them with every exhausted swing. Ra! Rodir swung wildly, his frantic strikes futile against the slime. Suddenly, the rookie shoved him back with cold authority. Step aside, gripping his shovel with military precision. The newcomer scoffed at the veteran's incompetence. Shut up and watch. You call that shoveling? Clearly, you've never served in the army. With a disgusting gurgle, the shovel buried itself deep into the slime. To the others, it was hell, but for a former sergeant forged in construction, this was child's play. Whoosh! Utilizing perfect leverage, he scooped up a massive chunk of the filth and flung it effortlessly, leaving the exhausted veterans gaping in disbelief at his sheer efficiency. As the shining blue core was dislodged, the slime dissolved into black smoke midair. Holy crap! The workers gaped in shock at the instant kill, but the rookie remained cold. To him, it wasn't luck. His treasure hunter trait revealed the hidden core clearly, allowing him to strike the monster's weak point with surgical precision. Beginner's luck, the veterans muttered, unable to process his strength. The rookie ignored them, deliberately avoiding the glowing cores now to mask his true ability. No need to show all my cards yet, he smirked inwardly, even while holding back. His shovel moved with terrifying efficiency, single-handedly doing the work of 5 men. The workers stood frozen, unable to comprehend the insane efficiency they just witnessed. Am I dreaming? They muttered in disbelief, trembling with a mix of fear and awe. Hedgehog Head voiced the question on everyone's mind. Are you a superhuman? The rookie turned sharply. His eyes glowed with an intense, golden piercing light, radiating a silent pressure that suffocated the room. Even the arrogant Rodia swallowed hard, his voice trembling in awe. "Hey, are you really a superhuman?" The rookie's gaze remained flat and cold as he denied it instantly. No. When pressed on how he possessed such monstrous strength, he simply shrugged, tossing out a casual excuse that silenced them all. "I told you, I served in the army. He's from the Legion." The whispers spread, rationalizing his monstrous strength. Ignoring them, the rookie harvested the battlefield. Whack, he collected the glowing cores trash to the world. But essential treasures to him, grateful. The workers offered their loot as tribute, all except Rodia, consumed by petty jealousy. The skinny man clutched his meager share, muttering, "These are mine." Clutching his meager loot like a jealous toddler, Rodia turned away with a petty snort. HMPH. The rookie didn't waste a second on the display, turning his back. He dismissed the leader with cold indifference. "Whatever. Do as you like," as he walked away, leaving the awkward tension behind. A single thought crossed his mind regarding the so-called veteran. What a child! With 21 mana cores secured, the usually cold rookie bowed with a sincere smile. "Thank you." The workers were taken aback by his humility. Hedgehog had waved dismissively, grinning with relief. "Thank us. We should be thanking you." The atmosphere shifted completely to them. This monster of a rookie had just turned a death march into a breeze. Sitting in meditative silence, the rookie calmly inhaled the toxic mana smoke. Inhale, exhale. Driven by a petty inferiority complex, Rodir ripped off his gas mask to mimic him. But while the rookie thrived, the veteran suffocated. Sweat pouring down his face in a suicidal attempt to compete with a monster he couldn't hope to match. Ueek, Rodir collapsed, retching violently as the toxic mana ravaged his insides. His men rushed in, screaming in panic at his foolish gamble. Meanwhile, the rookie sat unmoved within the swirling darkness, pitying the leader's ignorance. Did he really think he could compare? Unlike that fragile enhanced type, he was Warrior Kim, a true warrior class superhuman built to endure this hell. As the work dragged on, their bodies finally collapsed under the toxic load. Ugh, blood wept from their eyes and noses, while angry boils erupted, pushing against loose prosthetics. Yuik. Even Rodir wasn't spared. His legs ballooned into grotesque, twitching lumps of mutated meat. The contamination was literally tearing them apart from the inside out. Creak, his knuckles groaned in protest. He tried to clench his fist, but his fingers stiffened like rusted metal, refusing to obey. Cold sweat dripped down his face as the grim reality set in. Even with his superior resistance, the toxicity here was abnormal. The contaminated mana was far denser than I'd anticipated. His body was screaming a warning he was reaching his limit. Staring into the grime-streaked mirror, he assessed the damage with cold detachment. What a mess! The corruption was undeniable. Cold, grey scales like fish skin crawled up his cheeks, and his eyes gleamed with an oily, unnatural sheen. He was mutating, visibly becoming less human. Yet his gaze remained disturbingly calm amidst the horror. The engine cut out, turning the boss into a suffocating sauna. Sweat drenched the rookie's face, but he endured the heat in silence, refusing to complain. Cutting through the gloom with his phone light, Rodia cursed their grim reality. Ugh. That bastard took the keys again. How are we supposed to sleep in this oven without air conditioning? Rodia jammed the syringe into his throbbing flesh without hesitation. A moan of chemical bliss escaped him as the cheap suppressant flooded his veins. The effect was a grotesque miracle. Instantly, the swollen, monstrous limb deflated. the twisted muscles snapping back to their human form as if the mutation had never existed. Neon smoke curled through the air, turning the cramped bus into a psychedelic hellhole. Eyes rolled back and drool dripped as the cheap high took hold, offering a fleeting escape from their pain. And seconds, the transport vehicle degenerated into a wretched den of addicts. Amidst the colorful haze of depravity, only the rookie remained awake, silently observing the rot of humanity. One puff, and you're in heaven. Hedgehog Head grinned maniacally, offering the sweet poison a demon's invitation, and phased, the rookie gripped his cold kimbap. His only anchor to sanity in this madness, I'll pass, amidst the groans of the fallen. He refused to sell his soul for false peace. This is hell. His mind corroded under the assault of the stench and the madness on him. Yet, his eyes burned with unyielding fire, refusing to break, in that moment of absolute endurance. The system responded to his steel will. Ding! A blue screen materialized. Conditions met. Trait. Warrior's resilience acquired. Finally, some relief. The rookie chewed on his kimbap, savoring the simple mix of tuna and mayo. It was surprisingly tasty for a mere 1,501, a cheap comfort in this hellish reality. As he ate, a blue notification window flickered into existence before his eyes. Acquired the trait, endurance. He smirked inwardly. Just like in the game, his suffering had been rewarded with the power to withstand even more pain. Under the gray smog, Seoul stood as a suffocating cage for over 100 million souls. It was a twisted economy where real estate prices soared to the heavens while human value plummeted to the dirt. Crowds swarmed like insects through the narrow streets, and subways were packed to bursting. In this pressure cooker of a society, existence was nothing more than a cheap, miserable struggle waiting for the inevitable explosion. The barracks reeked of smoke and the groans of broken men. Amidst the coughing, he sat stoically, pulling the sleeping bag over his scarred face like a shield, blocking out the misery. He chose survival over sympathy. Whatever, I just need to sleep. The workers shambled toward the ruin like zombies. Recoiling in disgust, a man shunned his peer for the stench of rotting flesh. Kim staggered, clutching his gut as the sickness took hold. He stared at his hand in horror. The soft fuzz had hardened into cruel spikes overnight. The mutation was irreversible. Rodir blocked the path, his voice dripping with menace. Do you know what happens if one drops out? The ultimatum froze the air. Hedgehog Head trembled, fists clenched white as the mutation gnawed at him. But the fear of debt outweighed the fear of death. Sweating profusely, he stared back with desperate eyes. I'm fine, he lied through gritted teeth, sealing his fate. Let's keep going. Amidst the retching of the dying, he sat and moved, inhaling the toxic mana. The dark mist obeyed his rhythm. Ding. The system rewarded his endurance. Acquired trait, deep breathing. A wave of cool relief flooded his chest. While others broke, he was becoming something more. A wet cough splattered blood on the floor, followed by a bestial growl. Rodir didn't hesitate. Click. The gun was cocked, pointing straight at Kim's head. Kim tried to beg, don't shoot. But his tongue had already mutated. Refusing to form words, only a gurgled moan escaped his twisted mouth. Ding! The cheerful green light pierced the gloom. Salvation. Rodir lowered his gun, exhaling a long, trembling breath as the suffocating tension broke. Hua! The protagonist looked down at the man sprawled on the floor, who had been seconds away from execution. Kim almost died there. Consider yourself reborn today. Desperation filled the trash heap. Kim downed the green liquid while injecting the syringe, praying to halt the mutation. But the bus window reflected the cruel truth, a monster with metallic spikes piercing his face. The protagonist watched the futile struggle silently. Drugs were just drugs, a temporary fix at best. Holy water. Panic erupted as Kim vomited black sludge and sharp spikes, choking on his own mutation. Watching him writhe, the protagonist just smirked cynically. He knew the ugly truth. Half these men had the cure hidden in their pockets. But in this hell, no one would waste a drop of salvation on a corpse. "I'll cover him," he stated calmly, volunteering to absorb the toxicity alone. The workers froze, stunned. Rodir stared, baffled by this inexplicable altruism in a dog-eat-dog world. "Why are you doing this?" The protagonist simply shrugged, offering a cryptic smile that hid his true strength. Who knows? Was it pity, or just a whim? He sat calm as a statue, stacking deep breathing and resistance. The toxic mono obeyed him effortlessly. Beside him, Rodir groaned in agony, veins popping as he foolishly tried to compete. The protagonist watched with cold pity. Give it up. A crow can't keep up with a crane. You'll just tear yourself apart. Pop, desperate, Rodir poured the shimmering holy water over his twisting leg. Steam hissed as the expensive liquid reversed the mutation instantly. He panted, safe, but ashamed of his secret. Meanwhile, a fiery surge of power overwhelmed the protagonist. The system flashed the ultimate reward he had endured hell for, acquired trait, Mana Core. The green light signaled the end, but the relief was shattered instantly. Grower, a monstrous roar echoed from the deep, followed by blood-curdling screams. "Help us, shit!" Rodir bolted toward the screams in panic. Conversely, the protagonist gripped his shovel, ice cold and resigned. So it's come to this. The cleanup was over. The slaughter was next. Stepping into the tunnel, the protagonist froze. The nightmare had taken shape. Under the flickering lights stood a colossus of metallic spike skin, fully mutated. Rodir was flung through the air like a ragdoll, blood spraying in a gruesome arc as the beast attacked. When I stepped out, I saw it. The slaughter had begun. Kick, the mutant's grotesque laugh drowned out the screams of despair. And phased, the protagonist analyzed the beast with cold gamer logic. Massive upper body, yet comically small forearms, of fatal disproportion. The system confirmed his suspicion through the terror. It was merely a flawed level 1 mutant. Pupils dilating, he entered hyperfocus, where time seemed to freeze. With surgical precision, he manipulated the system, sacrificing recovery traits for pure destruction. FOD. Strength and mana core ignited. A violent surge of red and blue mana exploded from his chest, turning him into a living dynamo. He roared, "Come at me! Come at me!" He roared, clashing head-on with the beast. Rodir watched in horror, thinking him insane. Crash! The earth shook from the impact. Finally, the dust settled. The monster lay dead. And standing over it was the protagonist, miraculously returned to his human form. He had crossed the line into monstrosity and walked back. Alive. System. Activate toughness. He swapped traits instantly, trading defense for raw durability. "Let's do this, bastard," driving his fist into the mutant's soft underbelly. The impact echoed like a gunshot. Wham Kiek. The hedgehog staggered back, eyes bulging in shock. It hadn't expected the prey to bite back so hard. Graw! The mutant's heavy fist slammed down. He raised his arm to block crack. Bone snapped instantly. Searing pain shot through him like lightning, nearly blinding him. Clutching his shattered arm, he refused to collapse. "If I back down now, death," He forced his trembling body forward. Die. He poured every ounce of pent-up frustration into the blow. His fist, wrapped in searing heat, became a comet of pure rage. Thud. The impact shook the tunnel. Thaw. The hedgehog mutant shuddered violently, its eyes widening in shock. It was a clumsy attack, but it carried the crushing weight of a man refusing to break. Boom! The devastating blow sent him flying like a ragdoll. He hit the ground hard, coughing up blood as pain exploded through his body. Gra! The mutant roared in triumph, swinging its blood-soaked fist. He was losing broken bones and fading vision confirmed it. Yet, dragging his battered frame through the dust, he refused to stay down. He kept moving forward. More power, scorching heat fused with icy mana, and his veins, new trait, mutant muscle created. The synergy of mana core and strength unlocked a lethal upgrade. Crunch! His glowing fist buried deep into the beast's gut. Ugh! The monster coughed blood. Staggering back in disbelief, the tide had turned. Slammed against the concrete, he coughed blood. Arg! The beast was relentless. But at the brink of death, the system answered. New trait, mutant body created. Blue energy erupted whoosh, knitting broken bones instantly. The pain is gone. He stood up, fully healed. Staring down the monster with glowing veins, he was no longer prey. Thud! A heavy blow slammed him back. Not enough even with new traits. He was statistically inferior. He had to cross the line. The final lock must be broken. He commanded the system. Remove. Contamination resistance. Thump. Thump. His heart beat out of rhythm as the toxicity flooded in. To kill the monster. He voluntarily chose to become one. Grog. Agony ripped through him. Rip. Crack. Muscles swelled explosively, shredding his clothes as he morphed into a titan. The hedgehog mutant shrank back, looking up at the towering shadow in terror. Kikik. It realized too late the prey had become the predator. He grabbed the beast by the throat like a ragdoll. Boom! The concrete shattered under the impact, creating a massive crater. Ki-ik! The monster shrieked in agony, but mercy was not an option. Slam, slam, slam! He pounded it into the ground relentlessly. The hunter had become the victim. Thwok! A merciless final blow ended the beast. Watching the titan, Rodeer's teeth chattered uncontrollably. Monster to him, the savior was now a greater horror than the prey. Ah! He scrambled away in panic, fearing he was next. The protagonist stood alone amidst the dust. A victor who had transcended humanity. Bingo! He tapped the glowing menu. Deactivate. Mutant body. Crack. Shrink. The monstrous bulk retracted violently, bones snapping back into place like a rewinding tape. Steam hissed from his pores as the red gaze faded. He stood over the corpse, panting but human once more. His calculation was perfect. Steam hissed from his body as he stood over the defeated beast. Rodeer hyperventilated, eyes wide with terror at the impossibility. He just witnessed a monster reverting to a human. Ignoring the fear, the protagonist's eye glowed with cold. Mechanical logic. Bingo. The gamble paid off. My calculations were spot on. Rodeer's eyes quivered in terror. This can't be real, the superhuman. He pointed a trembling finger at the man who had just defied nature, the protagonist. Fighting back the intense dizziness from the reversion, simply shook his head with a cold, hollow stare. Not yet. He wasn't a superhuman, at least, not technically. The backlash was brutal. The world spun violently, every muscle screaming as if beaten to a pulp. Even with vigor, he was running on fumes. But he couldn't collapse, yet not with loot right in front of him, gritting his teeth against the nausea. He forced his trembling body toward the corpse. He placed a glowing hand on the corpse, activating extraction. Splort, ignoring the gore, he ripped through mushy ribs to claim his prize. A translucent, oily gem rested in his bloody palm, a level 1 mana core. Small, but in this hell, it meant survival. The cowards crept back, eyes bulging at the corpse. It's dead. Disbelief turned to sheer awe as they realized they survived. They stared at the battered rookie, jaws dropping. You did this. To them, only one explanation made sense. A superhuman in a place like this, in their eyes. He was no longer a rookie, but a god. Clang, the looting began. They hacked at the corpse like vultures, harvesting spines for cash, then immediately switched to a farce of mourning. Cheap booze and cigarettes filled the beast's maw. Rest in peace, they chanted solemnly. The protagonist watched the hypocrisy with a cold, cynical gaze. Yet, he held his tongue. After all, he was the one who ripped out the core first. The heavy gates groaned open. Creak, blinding sunlight pierced the gloom, washing away the tunnel's oppression. Finally out, the men cheered, disbelief in their voices, ignoring the noise. The protagonist closed his eyes, flaring his nostrils. He greedily inhaled the crisp air, purging the stench of blood and rot from his lungs. Superhuman, seriously, the driver gaped in disbelief. No joke, we saw it. The workers toasted with cheap soju, hailing their savior. Ignoring the clamor, the protagonist slumped in the back. Eyes closed to shut out the noise. The rusty bus sped along the Han River, carrying a sleeping monster back to the concrete jungle. Manager Choi, his jaw reinforced with steel, bowed his head in feigned sorrow. Kim was diligent. Such a shame. But the protagonist stood unmoved, his cold gaze piercing through the performance. He knew the type businessmen who weighed lives in profit margins. Beneath that mask of sympathy, those were nothing but crocodile tears. The mask of grief vanished, replaced instantly by a predatory grin. Steepling his fingers, Manager Choi declared cold-heartedly, "The living must go on." It was the logic of a merchant weighing life against profit. The protagonist met his gaze. Unfazed and pragmatic, agreed. He didn't judge the ruthlessness. In this hell, he wasn't any different. Click. With a casual wave, the safe unlocked. Telekinesis. Two thick stacks of 50,001 bills floated through the air, wrapped in a faint aura, before landing neatly on the desk. Please. Take it. This is your share, Warrior Kim. Manager Choi smiled, his eyes gleaming with intent. He wasn't just paying a worker. He was investing in a future superhuman. For you, only 5%. Thud. More cash landed. A little extra. Choi smiled, his offer dripping with honeyed poison. Trust me. The protagonist gripped the money, cold and alert. He knew that phrase. It was the sweet lie predators whispered before devouring their prey. This wasn't generosity, it was a leash. Trust me. Choi's smile was a trap wrapped in gold. He promised wealth, but the protagonist heard the sharpening of knives. They shook hands, a pact of mutual deceit. Happy to work with you, he lied smoothly. When Choi tried to tighten the leash with a dinner invite, the protagonist saw the hook hidden in the bait. He played the game, knowing he was being hunted. Sorry, urgent matters. He deflected the invite with a poker face. Choi pressed. Then when, soon, he replied vaguely, walking away. He clutched the cash, his mind made up. He would sign the contract eventually. But not as a pawn. He would return only when he was a true superhuman, powerful enough to dictate his own terms. Walking under the sunset, he hummed, clutching the thick stack of cash. A bitter smile formed. He had judged the looters, yet here he was, profiting from death just the same. I'm no different. He squeezed the bills tight, crushing the lingering guilt. Doesn't matter. In this hell, my survival comes first. Junior, he entered the room, the bag of cash heavy on his shoulder. They bowed, but their eyes were glued to the loot, sweating with desire. The reverence for the superhuman was gone, replaced by a sticky, suffocating hunger. He stared back coldly, reading the ugly truth in their gazes. It was no longer respect, it was raw greed and envy. He collapsed, his body screaming from the mutation's backlash. He slept like the dead, yet the Goshawan's thin walls offered no peace. Get out, why me? Screams of a violent argument pierced his feverish dreams. At 4:59 a.m., caught between exhaustion and the chaos outside, his mind remained trapped in a half-awake hell. 5 o'clock a.m., a scream sliced through his dream, jolting him awake in a cold sweat. Ah-h-h-h. It wasn't human. A low, metallic groan of despair echoed through the hall. Unlike anything he had ever heard, the eerie sound sent chills down his spine. The nightmare had followed him into reality. Doors slammed open. Residents emerged clutching kitchen knives and bats, eyes wide with paranoia. The office. Did she get stabbed? The cramped hallway buzzed with panicked whispers. The protagonist didn't hesitate. He ran toward the chaos. In this lawless pit, ignoring a scream could cost you your life. Creak, the door revealed a nightmare. Mr. Lee stood there, eyes glazed with madness, his jaw grotesque steel trap dripped with bloody saliva. Her here, he giggled, waving the crimson-stained knife like a toy. The residents froze in terror. He looked less like a human and more like a failed experiment by a mad scientist. The landlady lay face down in a widening pool of crimson, her body twitching in its final throes. Without a high-ranking priest, she was already a corpse. Damn it. Holy shit. The residents froze in horror. The protagonist watched the gruesome scene with cold realization. She had sold a desperate man's jaw for profit, and this was the price. Karma had come to collect its debt in blood. That bastard's on drugs. The residents recoiled, disgust outweighing fear. A woman spoke with cold apathy. Step aside. We're not the police. In this lawless hellhole, altruism was a death sentence. The protagonist stood silent, his eyes hardening as he accepted the grim reality. A silent pact formed in the blood-scented air. Turn a blind eye. Don't get involved. Should I stop him? He calculated. Crushing the addict would be effortless, yet he hesitated. The memory of the landlady's greed selling her tenants' body parts for cash flashed in his mind. This was justice, cold and bloody. Turning his back on the corpse, he felt a chilling kinship with the killer. She had it coming. In this hell, Mr. Lee was the true victim, and perhaps a mirror of his own dark future. Die, unpredictable as ever, the madman lunged with his bloody knife, eyes glowing red. This bastard, the protagonist, didn't flinch. His survival instinct kicked in. Scanning for a counter in split seconds. There, a dusty fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. Now, need for superpowers, just brute force and a heavy chunk of metal would do the trick. Crack, with brute strength, he ripped the extinguisher from the wall, bolts giving way instantly. Fork, he swung the heavy red cylinder in a violent arc. Thud. Metal clashed with metal as it smashed into the steel jaw. The bone-rattling impact sent blood spraying, rolling the addict's eyes back. One hit was all it took to silence the madness. How? The hallway buzzed with her as Kim stood over the unconscious addict. It's Warrior Kim. But when a trembling girl suggested calling the police, a bold man sneered with cold cynicism. The police, They abandoned this hellhole long ago, and this lawless zone. The law was nothing but a myth. Click, the safe surrendered to the ex-thief's wire. Fft, only 600 grand. Mr. Yong spat next to the corpse, disgusted by the meager loot. The resident stared, entranced by the cash. In that moment, morality died. Fear vanished, replaced by a collective, ugly hunger to strip the dead woman clean. He waved a hand, rejecting the blood money code. Count me out. As they scrambled for the dead woman's cash like vultures, a chill hit him. They had normalized madness within minutes of a murder. To stay here was suicide. He walked away from the greed. His mind set on one thing: escape this hell. Packing his fortune, he shuddered. A thief who picks locks could easily have slipped into his room and stabbed him in his sleep. These scavengers would kill for a fraction of his loot. This place is a death trap. Slinging the heavy bag, he bolted down the hallway. He had to escape this hell before their greed turned its knife on him. He walked past the whispers, feeling a greedy gaze bore into his heavy loot bag. He smirked bitterly. He knew that look well, but couldn't even muster a laugh. Sigh, leaving the human rot behind. He stepped into the pale dawn. The sky brightened, casting long, eerie shadows. He had survived the night. Now, the real struggle began. Shadows clawed the earth like a witch's fingers. He gripped the bag, his lifeline. Money, power, and a vow to survive. Why despair when he held the keys to his future? Let's go. Shaking off the gloom of the Goshawan, he marched toward the light of a new beginning.